If you grew up in 1990s Britain, you could often tell how bad the money situation was without a single word being said. It showed up in the cupboard, in the freezer, and in the strange little dinners that were meant to last longer than they should have. Some of these foods felt completely normal at the time. Looking back, they were quiet signs that your family was skint. So, which grocery buys instantly gave it away? And which ones were so common, most people never realized they were poverty food? Bird's eye potato waffles. They were the dinner that could pretend to be more than one thing. Chips if you were lucky, toast if you were desperate, and a full meal if you dropped beans on top and called it sorted. That was the trick with bird's eye potato waffles. They felt flexible, easy, almost cheerful. But in a lot of homes, that waffly, versatile line covered a harsher truth. This was cheap freezer food doing a lot of heavy lifting. Breakfast, tea, late snack, quick filler. It kept turning up because it stretched. And once a food shows up in 3 different roles, it usually isn't there by accident. Richmond sausages. If money was tight, sausages could make a dinner look bigger than it really was. And Richmond sausages were perfect for that. A few on the plate, some chips, a slice of bread, maybe beans on the side, and suddenly tea looked sorted. That was the real value, not quality, not meatiness, not anyone pretending these were the best in Britain. They worked because they stretched. One pack could cover more than one meal, bulk out a breakfast, or rescue a dinner that did not have much else going for it. In a lot of 1990s homes, that mattered more than taste. But compared with the next item, even these still felt like a proper sit-down meal. Bachelor's super noodles. Super noodles were what happened when a full dinner was too expensive, but a snack was not enough. One packet felt like a meal if you ate it straight from the saucepan. 2 packets felt almost extravagant. Curry flavor, chicken flavor, that salty steam coming up the minute the water hit. This was classic payday minus 3 days food. It was quick, it was hot, and it gave the illusion that something proper was happening. But the real giveaway was when noodles stopped being a side and became the whole event. And compared with the next item, even that still felt slightly organized. Findus crispy pancakes. These were dangerous, fake fancy, and absolutely perfect for this list. Crispy on the outside, nuclear in the middle, and somehow still seen as a proper tea. Findus crispy pancakes felt modern in the way a lot of 90s hardship food did. Frozen, beige, and sold as convenience. Cheese and ham, minced beef, chicken and mushroom. Just enough filling to sound substantial, never quite enough to feel generous. The reason they worked was simple. You could put 2 on a plate with chips or waffles and make the meal look bigger than it was. But if that felt like dinner, the next one felt even more lonely. Pot noodle chicken and mushroom. This was not really dinner, it was survival in a pot. Pot noodle was what you bought when cooking was off the table, energy was low and money was worse. Chicken and mushroom was the cupboard regular because it was familiar, cheap feeling, and always seemed to be there when nothing else was. You peel the lid, pour the water, wait a few minutes, and convince yourself this counts. For students, for single parents, for teenagers raiding the kitchen, it became one of those foods that sat right on the line between comfort and defeat. But once packet meals moved from emergency food to routine food, that is where things really started to show. And this is where the list changes, because the next few were not just cheap. They were the foods families kept buying when stretching the budget became a system. Vesta beef curry. Vesta beef curry was the meal that tried to make hardship feel exotic. A box, a few sachets, a promise of curry night, and somehow that was enough. It felt different from beans and bread, which is exactly why it mattered. When money was tight, families still wanted variety, still wanted something that broke the routine, still wanted one meal that did not feel like surrender. Vesta sold that feeling in dried form. It was clever because it turned scarcity into novelty. But once you moved from novelty to pure shelf-stable necessity, the next foods got much harder to hide. Prince's corned beef. Prince's corned beef was one of those foods that could become 3 different meals without anyone shopping again. Sandwiches one day, hash the next, maybe shoved into a pan with onions and potatoes after that. That is why it mattered. Not because it was glamorous, not because it was fresh, not because anyone truly craved it. It mattered because it lasted. In a skint household, foods that lasted always won, and corned beef had that dense, salty, slightly sad quality a lot of budget staples shared. It was never the dream, but it kept appearing because it was useful. The next one did the same thing, only with pastry on top and an even stronger feeling of making do. Fray Bentos steak and kidney pie. A Fray Bentos pie looked like a proper meal before it was opened. That was part of the appeal. It sat in the cupboard like insurance. Not for a nice occasion, not for Sunday dinner, but for the night when there was nothing else and you still needed something that looked like effort. The tin, the heavy lid, the promise of meat and pastry, it all felt more solid than the reality. But that was enough. In a lot of homes, appearance mattered nearly as much as fullness. If it looked hearty, smelled rich, and came out of the oven like a real pie, it could briefly hide the fact that the budget was doing the talking. But the next 2 did not even try to hide it. Bernard Matthews' Golden Drummers. These were the kind of freezer food that made tea look fun when money was not. Shaped like drumsticks, covered in crumbs, lined up next to chips and beans, they looked like a treat while quietly doing the job of cheap filler. That was the real value. They felt like meat, they looked bigger than they were, and they helped a thin dinner pass as a proper one. In a lot of 1990s homes, that mattered more than quality. Nobody was serving them because they were special. They were easy, familiar, and very good at hiding how little else was in the freezer. And if golden drummers were on the tray, the final item on this list was usually somewhere close by. Heinz spaghetti hoops. This was the kind of food that made a nearly empty kitchen feel less empty. A tin of Heinz spaghetti hoops, a couple of slices of bread, maybe a sausage if you were lucky, and suddenly tea looked like a proper meal. That was the real trick. It was soft, cheap feeling, and easy to throw on the plate when there was not much else to work with. In a lot of 1990s British homes, hoops were not exciting, not special, and not even the main event. They were there to fill space, stretch dinner, and make sure nobody got up still hungry. That is why they work so well at number 1. Not because everyone who ate them was poor, but because they were exactly the kind of cupboard staple that quietly appeared when the budget was doing all the talking. How many of these did you grow up with, and which one instantly takes you back to a 1990s British kitchen? Drop your memories in the comments, share this with someone who lived on these foods, and if you want more 70s, 80s and 90s Britain nostalgia, like the video and subscribe.